I am stripping balsa wood for the longerons, for the fuselage, for the Ed Lamb climber. The way I do that for sea grain balsa is I use a straight edge. This is sea grain balsa, so it's the heaviest, hardest, springiest balsa I have. It's about 14 pound per square foot balsa. I have two balsa strippers, homemade one that I made that captures the balsa better, and this master air screw balsa stripper. But I find with this hard sea grain balsa that either one of these strippers tend to follow the harder grain and not cut straight, especially over this length. And I need straight longerons. The interesting thing about this design of Ed Lamb's is it's a big model. This is a 44-inch wingspan. It uses almost a full sheet length of balsa for the fuselage. They make these sheets of balsa, they're about a ½ inch long, a little bit extra to trim up the edges. And when Ed Lamb designed this, looks like it's going to be pretty much 36 inches on the number, the length of the fuselage. So with a rubber powered model that big, I needed my strongest balsa over that length. I needed these straight. This is a great performer. It says right on the print, it's 1941 National Stick Champion in the Open Division. It's kitted by 4KS Models Incorporated, and I have no clue where I got this from. This is another one that I brought with me when I moved from East Coast in 2005. I framed this wing back then, so the wing is already done. It's a short kit. Here are the printed wood for the horizontal stabilizer and rudder. Here is the balsa wood prop block. So it's going to be a hand carved folding prop. I have seen this plane fly. I know it's a great performer. And here are a couple pictures of this plane. The Ed Lamb climber. This is Skip Williams, a good friend of my mentor Bill Brenchley. I first saw this plane flown by Skip at a contest I was at with Bill and Skip. And at the time I had my gollywalk, and I thought I need a large rubber powered free flight model airplane. Here is Skip just checking a glide on it. See the folding prop in this picture. Skip was a master builder and an even better flyer. His color schemes, his workmanship was as good as I've seen anybody do. So I have all my longerons stripped, and these ones here, and then I have some extra 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch strips for the vertical pieces. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up and get started on framing up this fuselage. Have the longerons laid down for the first half of the fuselage. Trying a little different technique on this build. Normally I'd cover the print with saran wrap, but when you push all the pins through the saran wrap, it seems like you still get glue that seeps down through there. It tends to stick to the print. What I'm doing is suspending the build off the print. Cut these strips from a box of breakfast bars. I have them all laid down in between where the vertical pieces go. These pins on the inside are forming the bend in the longerons, so they're spaced closer together up here in the nose area, a little bit farther apart in here. In this tail section there's some sharper bends, so I have more of the pins on the inside. These are T-pin clamps. So I got the little plastic button. They're what's holding them down. So I've pushed them through the cardboard strips, the pins, and then you push these plastic buttons down, so that's clamping it to the print. Now I have to cut and glue in all the vertical pieces and the cross bracing, and there's some areas where some sheeting in this area where the rear peg goes, some angle bracing, there's some sheeting up by the nose area. Tighter the fits, stronger the glue joints. So I always cut long with the razor saw and sand it to fit, including if there's an angle to the fit. With the fuselage side frame being suspended off the print and off the building board, I can't push this all the way down. Don't want to. I have to line up the top. And I am going to go back and re-glue all the joints after I take it off the board. So I'm just putting a drop in each corner, letting it wick into the joint. Wipe off the excess super glue. It will sand better if I do that. And now at this point I want to wet the longerons so it relaxes into these bends. Wetting out the longerons this way with a Q-tip, I can control the quantity and the location of the water. I do not want to use an aerosol spray bottle. I do not want to wet the verticals and the angle braces. No need to. No sense risking them warping on me. I'm also wetting this section out where there's the strongest bends up front here back to where I framed it. I framed it first so that the CA glue wicks into the longerons better. I could wet it after I pinned them down and then wait for it to dry, but I want it glued in place so that there's the least chance for it to for any warpage. So it's all pinned down to the board, suspended on the cardboard strips, and I'm wetting it out. Then I'll let that dry thoroughly before I take it up off the board. Interesting thing with balsa wood, you put a bend in it and restrain it, wet it down, it alters the sap in the wood. It would hold that bend even without these frames holding it in place. I'll not wet it in here. It's pretty relaxed down through the center part of the fuselage. I'll wet this out after I frame it, just like I'm doing up front here. A lot of the enjoyment for me building is reading the print, figuring out the design, appreciating the design, and then figuring out how to manufacture it. I am drilling a 32 thou hole with this wire drill held in this pin vise through this 64th plywood doubler. This adds support for the rear peg. I have the 1/8 inch sheeting balsa wood filling in this area. There's two 1/8 by 1/8 inch stringers that are cut out so this 64th plywood is inlaid in there, captured. And I built all this up, clamped it together with the T-pin clamps, and laid out the center line of that hole where the rear peg goes. So I'm running this hole through the 64th ply and the 1/8 inch balsa on location, and then with these crosshairs here I'll open it up later to fit the rear peg. I used a 32 thou drill because my T-pins are 30 thou in diameter, so that's just a clearance hole for the T-pin. I'll use that to keep the 64th plywood doubler in line with the 1/8 inch balsa sheeting when I glue this together. This is a handy thing to have as a modeler. A set of wire drills and a pin vise. Put two different size ranges on each end. Just tightens down. It's split 4 ways so it clamps on the drill. I have this set of wire drills here. It's handy to have as a modeler. Size ranges from 39 thousandths all the way down to 13.5 thousandths. Here I have all the components out, the 1/8 inch sheet fill, two 1/8 by 1/8 inch braces, and the 64th plywood doubler. This print is fading badly. I've marked over it with pencil so I can see it. Here I've transferred marks to my frame. Get my locations when I build over top of the print. So location of the two 1/8 inch braces and the 64th ply doubler and the center line for the rear peg. And here's the top view. Shows how the doublers are located. They're inlaid in the 1/8 inch braces. Wow, that finishes up the first half of the fuselage. Had a couple more 1/8 inch plywood fills in the back here to put in. These are adding a little strength back by the tail. Paying attention, of course, to the grain. It's vertical grain. I also have all the 1/8 inch fill pieces cut out for the second half of the fuselage, which I will be doing next. But that finishes up the first half. Worst part of it always is building the second one. I also have to remember with this doubler and these braces being on the inside, I have to make sure I make a left and a right hand. So this would be the right hand side fuselage.